How's it going, everybody? My name is Artorigold, and today I want to talk about D.va and how to play D.va at the Grandmaster Top 500 level. So I'm only going to be going over the offense round because on defense I switched to a different hero, but I will be covering D.va and kind of going by every single play and every little thing that I do, things that are right, the things that I'm attempting to do, and things along that nature. So, at the very beginning part of the game, I'm going to stop right here. One of the things that you want to do is you want to use your defense matrix on this door to make sure everybody can get out safely. Maps like Dorado, this is different for every map, but on this map on Dorado, there is a very specific tiny little area where people who are on the high ground are able to lob like projectiles and hit scan and shoot some stuff at this very tiny little narrow line of sight. And so at the beginning of the game, people are going to just spam this door as soon as it opens. So your goal on D.va is to basically just hold down right click and make sure that everybody gets out safely. So you'll notice right here, I'm going to be looking, as you can see, the Hanzo on the enemy team is spamming lots of different arrows, all at the choke point. I'm just holding right click as much as possible. And then I'm going to just ease up on the defense matrix a little bit because we got everybody out, but you see that the Ana is still at the gate. So in this instance, I'm going to wait for her to try and pass, and then I'm going to use defense matrix on her just to kind of get her out safely. So that's kind of your main goal as D.va, is you're just going to use your defense matrix on a lot of high priority things. So high priority means you want to use it on targets that do a lot of damage to your supports and to your monkey, your Winston. So not every game, but most games that you're playing D.va, it's going to be accompanied by a main tank such as Winston, who pairs very well with the D.va, and for a lot of reasons, both of you have really low cooldowns on mobility moves, so you can go and contest the high ground together, do a lot of damage, and then just get out of there. So one of the first things that I'm going to do here is I'm not going to sit on the payload. I see with that the enemy team is right here on the high ground. There's a few different things that you could play as D.va, especially on Dorado. So the first thing that I could do is I could either sit on the payload and pretty much just do nothing, use my right click on any damage that's incoming, push the payload very slow and passively try to take as little damage as possible. That's an okay option. That's option number one. The second option, this is the safe option, to just kind of do nothing and play very slow. The second one is the aggro play, right? So what you want to do on the aggro play is you see the entire enemy team is going to be grouped up right here on the high ground on this flat area. And the aggro play would be just go up there with your Winston and try to attack them as soon as possible, do some damage, maybe get a kill. Now this is very risky. Very, very risky for a few reasons. One, the payload's barely moved. You're still at this corner, right? And the payload has this whole, like, choke point that it has to go and cover before it gets to the tunnel area right here. And so that's a lot of space that you kind of need to wait around for, and it's going to take a while before the payload gets to that area. So playing the aggro play basically just gives the enemy team ult charge unless you notice that the enemy team is lacking some people. For example, if you see that they have a Reinhardt Zarya comp, which you can tell from here, here's the Rein, you can tell by the big trophy and the Zarya right here. Basically, if they drop back to the tunnel area, then that gives you potential time to go for the squishy people that are going to be left in the back, and that's a good play to be aggro then, because then the tanks are focusing on dropping to the tunnel, but that's not going to happen when the payload is sitting right here. You need to wait and give space for the payload to travel. I'm going to take the third option, and as you can see, the monkey over here, the Winston, is doing the exact same thing, so instead I'm going to go for the distraction play. So both of us are going to go ahead and get on the high ground, but at the same time, by being on this high ground, the enemy has this small choke point. So basically this is the only little tunnel area that they're going to be able to shoot at us from, but at the same time, it's not a very good line of sight, and characters like Reinhardt and Zarya aren't going to be able to hit you from this area. And it's also at the same time, it's going to do a few different things by doing this play. Basically, the enemy team is going to be distracted, and another thing that's going to happen from it is they're going to separate. By having the enemy team separate, it creates space, but also it creates an opportunity for you and Winston to be able to dive a target that possibly overextends, trying to do chip damage to you two instead of going for the squishies on the cart. these are all very hypothetical things, but they are things that can happen, and I want to make sure that you understand the decision-making process that goes through when playing these characters. So, by flying up here, we use our cooldowns, and one of the things that we want to do when, since it's a very low cooldown, it's 5 seconds, we kind of just want to hide. We're not going to use our bubble, we're not going to use our defense matrix, they're going to stick together, but we're not going to try and use our cooldowns and wait as long as we can to get our mobility move, because the mobility move is basically the initiation tool as much as it is a disengage. So this is exactly what I'm talking about with separation right there. Now, if my Winston wasn't jumping on this Zarya, which is perfectly fine, because look what happens in this instance. We get the Hanzo, who's over here, we get the Zarya, who's over here, and this Zarya is completely alone now. So this is something that what our play does. It completely separates the team. So basically the entire enemy team starts separating, they don't know where to go. The Hanzo goes over here to shoot some arrows, and then the rest of them drop down to the tunnel. As you can see, the Reinhardt is here. But when you do that, what happens is there's an opportunity to get the person who is the slow, basically the person who decides to not drop down from the high ground, and whoever does it last is the potential pick that you can try and focus and single out. And you can see that's exactly what happens. I got the Hanzo over here, I distract them, and the Zarya, I don't know why, but she's just so slow and just doesn't group up with the rest of her team, and because of this, we're able to get an extremely easy pick off of her. And then what happens with this is the Reinhardt is trying to help his team, or help her Zarya, who's out of position, but is way too late to that as well because of hesitation, something like that. And so because of that, now the Reinhardt is out of position. He does get a pick on the Doomfist, which is really good. But what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to distract them. So both me and my Winston are going to be our partner in crime, and we're just going to go on him. And now that we've basically taken out both tanks, the Zarya and Reinhardt, the rest of the team is just ripe for picking, right? Every single one of them is a squishy. My defense matrix stops everything they do, and my missile and basically my combo is just run into their face with boosters, melee, and start doing left click damage until they are dead. And now that I have a Winston with me in this situation, we are just going to unload all of our damage, and we have too much health in order for them to deal anything with it. So we're just going to get crazy aggro here. I drop a little bit low HP, but that's okay because my Winston is basically able to have free reign here. I'm going to focus on the McCree, who I know is still behind us, while the Winston is, well, basically the rest of my team, the Ana is going to be pocketing the Winston, who is doing damage to the supports, but I know there is a McCree who's back here, and that's what my focus is going to be. So all you got to do is you just got to boost right into them, melee, use those micro missiles, and hold down right click if you need to, and then just they're going to be at half health, if not lower at that point, and it's very easy to kill them, especially if they are alone. So as you can see, the enemy team is very staggered, and what I'm going to do is, instead of bullying a Zarya, you should never fight a Zarya in a 1v1 as D.Va. She has the advantage because her beam will go right through your defense matrix, and her personal bubble, if she uses it right on your micro missiles, it's basically devastating. You're going to give her more damage, you can't block it, and your only option at that point is to run away. Instead of focusing on the Zarya, I'm going to instead fly right past her and focus on the squishies in the backline, such as this Hanzo, who's extremely out of position. He has a pocket with Ana, but it doesn't really matter too much because I'm actually going to just go ahead and expend my ultimate for this. This is a pretty good ultimate. So I have some bad ultimates with D.Va. It's definitely something I have to work on, but in this instance, it's really good. Not only do we have the advantage with numbers, we also have our payload, which is just about to reach this point. And at this point, we have two of their members, the Ana and the Hanzo, who are unable to touch the point. And my entire thing right here is I'm just going to, if I'm not able to kill them, I'm just going to put as much pressure on them as possible so we can just capture the point. And so I'm just going to use my ultimate in this instance to create that opportunity or that space in order for the these two guys, they're going to have to try and focus on hiding around a corner or something. And when I use my boosters to boop into them, they're going to get pushed back. So it's going to be much harder for them to try and get to this other side of the tunnel as well. So this is really good. I like this ultimate. It's not like one of those crazy play of the game, get a bunch of kills with your ultimate, but it's going to be more of a zoning tool, which is how I think you should use the ultimate. I'm going to go ahead and defense matrix my Winston as much as possible. Definitely save him from the storm bow from Hanzo, which has like, I think, 420 damage potential in total if you hit every single arrow off the E. And I'm just going to go ahead and fly at the Hanzo, use my micro missiles, hold down defense matrix, try to bump him off as much as possible, and basically just give Hanzo the no space. I want to make it so Hanzo is not able to shoot arrows freely at any target that he wants to, and by helping defense matrix my Winston, it really helps enable my Winston to do damage, because unlike me, D.va is unable to defense matrix a Winston lightning gun. One important, I guess it's more of a basic thing about D.va is knowing what your defense matrix is powerful, strong, good against, and completely useless against. Like I said before, Zarya is a really heavy counter to you. Do not try to fight her, especially if she has high energy. She will melt you and your defense matrix does nothing to her. The things that your defense matrix is really strong against is Hanzo, snipers, Widowmaker, Soldier, McCree, Hit Scan. It's really effective against Pharah. You're one of the direct counters to Pharah if you know how to just bump into her whenever she's using her ult. It's completely devastating. Anyways, I want to talk about what I'm doing here. So even though I'm not going to be doing a lot of damage or killing the D.va, that's not my goal. My goal is to bump her off the high ground and not allow her the space. So another thing here is my monkey goes in first, which is fine. You kind of want to let the monkey take the lead. Watch where Winston goes, and what you want to do with Winston is he doesn't want to use his bubble right away. One of Winston's goals is to use his mobility move, leap, and then right after leaping, you want to use the bubble. And you don't want to use your bubble kind of right away. You want to be able to use it to save yourself as much time as possible, so then you can leap right back out. And that's basically what you're going to do. That's your rotation as Winston. And as D.va, you're basically going to be the filler. And what I mean by that is you're going to be leaping with him, and then you're going to be using your defense matrix to try and save him when he engages and when he disengages, and the bubble is going to be like the halftime show. And it's going to be it's going to be the middle, it's going to be the chunk of it, but your defense matrix is going to enable the Winston to take as little damage as possible, because as you can see, like the D.va's looking up at him and the lightning's looking up at him, and I'm sure something else is too, like a DPS. So you want to defense matrix the monkey whenever he leaps in. That's your goal. And then you want to defense matrix him as he gets out. It's hard to defense matrix a enemy Winston, but I will try to do it on the D.va as much as possible. Leaping into a Winston can be really good too, because it kind of gets him out of his bubble. I also think that D.va is really good at destroying monkey bubbles. Now this ultimate wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. I want to talk about this ultimate. So there are a few reasons why I use this ultimate. One of the things is it's just creating a large amount of space. As we can see, the enemy team just did two things. This was my big reason why I used ultimate. One, I see the monkey leap right over here, and two, I see the Hanzo who is wall riding and leaping over here. So that's two people that I know in this big area. And there's only a few areas. You have to go all the way back to this door over here and go around a corner, or you could go to the door over here, or you could try to squeeze in between one of the pillars over here, and that's basically their only escape routes. So chucking a ultimate in this position is a potential 2 picks on these two characters, and I know that Winston has a 5-second cooldown on his leap, so he's not able to use that again to try and leap away from the bomb. So that's also a big reason. Another thing is I just killed his Winston barrier, so I know he's not able to use that to save it either, which is something that I would guess the Hanzo would use too. The Hanzo has like a little leap, but it's not like the biggest leap. Anyways, so that was the big reason why I used that. Unfortunately, it didn't work out quite that great, but it did create the enemy team to come to us. As you noticed, they basically start running. The enemy team starts running. So the Winston with the nano boost is able to engage. The Hanzo is over here. I don't know how he lives from this, but basically the enemy team who's backline over here, the Winston's going to be creating pressure from them, and they're not able to use any of this space. So where is the enemy team able to go? Only one way. They're basically forced to go towards the rest of our team, and they're going to be separated, or they could try to go back here, but if they go back here, our nano boost monkey is easily going to kill them. So what happens is the Hanzo gets out safely. I don't know how the Hanzo gets out safely. But our Winston is able to get up the 2 kills on people because of that. Gets the McCree and the Winston. And so I'm basically just going to try and focus my defense matrix and get out as quickly as possible. One thing to note is don't stay in a fight at all if you're at low health. You want to use your mobility move to disengage if it looks like there's too much damage coming out. This applies to Winston and D.Va and any other character with a mobility move like Genji. You want to save your dash, or Tracer, you want to save at least one blink or a recall just for a panic button, you know? And that's basically what you want to do. You want to try and take calculated damage as D.Va, but try not to take too much. Right there, I took way too much damage. What happened there is I tried to knock the D.Va off the high ground, but it wasn't very effective, and she also got a Lucio defensive ult, so the D.Va just didn't care and was able to just concentrate on raw mechanics and basically bully me out of mech. One of the things about D.Va is it really sucks to be out of mech, but you can build it pretty quickly if you have a really big target to hit, such as a monkey who's in primal rage. Really easy to focus down the tanks with your bunny blaster. I immediately recommend doing that. Much more difficult to try and focus down a DPS hero because they have small hitboxes, but focusing on the enemy tanks is good. I also think it's really good use of your damage to break a Winston bubble. I think you do a decent amount of damage. You can break a Winston bubble. You can use your micro missiles on it, and Winston bubbles are kind of annoying. DPS don't really want to shoot at it, but it also doesn't have a whole lot of durability. The Winston bubble goes down pretty quickly, so I don't think it's a terrible idea to kind of use your micro missiles and just concentrate on damage on breaking the bubble, because it creates more opportunities for your DPS to have a little bit more wiggle room. But I also don't think it's the best play. I think it's okay. Using your micro missiles is okay on D.Va. It's not a cooldown that I hold on to as much as my I care more about the defense matrix and the mobility move than the micro missiles on D.Va. I do think micro missiles is a very important ability when dealing with squishy targets with no mobility, such as a Zenyatta or a McCree or maybe even a soldier. Your micro missiles is extremely strong to save onto them, but they only have a Hanzo. So that was it for D.Va. I don't play D.Va on the second round on defense, but I do think it was a pretty good round of D.Va for offense, and I hope you guys learned a couple of things. In summary, you want to be able to dive the squishy targets and use your defense matrix on hit scan characters, snipers, even use them against Ana. You can use your defense matrix to stop her nade or her sleep dart, and that is a lot of value. You can even stop it from her just healing her team or body blocking, and that's a lot of value out of D.Va as well. Make sure to save your defense matrix and just a little bit of defense matrix, and try to save your mobility move for escape and defense purposes more than aggressive purposes. You also really want to look at where your Winston is going and try to go with them as much as possible. Winston's damage output isn't that great, and he also kind of lacks survivability against the enemy team on a higher level because they know how to burst a monkey down if he is alone. So being with him, body block and defense matrix, and apply more damage, and all around it just makes for an amazing combo that works way better than just working alone. So I highly suggest doing D.Va with a Winston combo and staying with your Winston. Let the Winston decide where he wants to go and then follow him. I wouldn't make too many of the shot calls as D.Va. I would let the Winston do it. That's generally what the main tank should be doing. When it comes to ultimate usage, I would try to use it for remech purposes. If you're new to D.Va, basically just use it for a second life. I would suggest that if you're a beginner to D.Va, remeching is probably the best way to do it. It's essentially just healing the fool and getting a second chance to do more things. At the more advanced level, you want to get more value out of the bomb with zoning the enemy team and denying them positioning wherever they want to go. Use it when the enemy uses bubbles and you know they don't have it, such as if you see a Winston use a bubble and you see a Winston use a mobility move, then just chuck the bomb at him and it'll most likely get him. And you also can use it on the payload and overtime situations. I also think that's really good. There's a lot of variety of ways with the D.Va bomb that can be used. I highly suggest going into custom games and just practice throwing bombs. It might be kind of silly sounding, but it's really effective and it'll really help you improve as a D.Va player. Anyways, that's all I have for today, guys. I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you guys next time.